name is Caleb Dorian. I'm 23 years old and I'm a freelance videographer from Missoula, Montana. For almost 4 years, I saved every single penny I could get my hands on to buy my dream professional camera setup, a Canon EOS R5 with 3 top-of-the-line lenses. This wasn't just some expensive hobby gear, it was my livelihood. I used this equipment to film the stunning trails and national parks around Montana and to produce promotional videos for local small businesses. Every dollar I earned came from that camera. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. The thing about living in Montana is that you learn to appreciate what you have. Every piece of equipment, every opportunity, every relationship, they all matter more when you're building something from scratch in a small town. I wasn't handed anything. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my dad, Marshall, remarried a woman named Eileen who brought her daughter, Sati, into our family. Sati was 7 years younger than me, and from day one it was clear she was the golden child. I didn't mind it much at first. I was focused on my own path. After high school, while my friends went off to 4-year colleges on their parents' dime, I stayed local and started my video business. I worked construction jobs during the week and filmed weddings on weekends just to save up for that camera setup. 4 years of ramen noodles, secondhand clothes, and saying no to every social event that cost money. But it was worth it when I finally walked into that camera shop in Bozeman and bought my Canon EOS R5 with a 24-70 MF2.8, 16 to 35 MF2.8 lenses. The total came to just over $4,000, 0 cents more money than I'd ever spent on anything in my life. That equipment transformed my business overnight. The image quality was incredible, and suddenly I was booking corporate clients from as far away as Billings and Great Falls. I was finally making real money, doing what I loved for the first time since starting my business. I felt secure. Last summer, 2 of my college buddies came back to Montana for a visit and suggested we do some light hiking in Yellowstone. Just a weekend trip, nothing too serious. Since we'd be backpacking and every ounce mattered, I made the smart decision to leave my expensive camera gear at home. I carefully packed everything in its protective cases and stored it in my bedroom closet. The same way I always did. We had an amazing time hiking the Ferry Falls Trail and exploring the Grand Prismatic area. I took some photos with my phone, but mostly I just enjoyed being present with my friends. It felt good to disconnect from work for a couple of days. When we got back to Missoula on Sunday evening, I was tired but refreshed. Already thinking about the corporate video I had scheduled to shoot on Tuesday, I walked into my house expecting to grab a shower and start planning my week. Instead, I found my bedroom door wide open and my closet completely ransacked. My camera cases were gone, everything was gone. My first instinct was to call the police. Someone had broken into my house and stolen $4,000, 0 cents worth of camera equipment. But as I looked around more carefully, nothing else was missing. My laptop was still on my desk. My TV was untouched. Even the $50, 0 cents in cash I kept in my nightstand drawer was still there. What kind of burglar breaks in and only takes camera gear from a closet? Then I noticed something else that didn't add up. My bedroom window was still locked from the inside. The front door showed no signs of forced entry. Whoever had taken my equipment had used a key, and there were only 3 people who had keys to my house. Me, my landlord, Mr. Chen, who lived in Taiwan half the year, and my dad, Marshall, who had a spare key for emergencies. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, but I pushed it away. There had to be another explanation. Maybe Mr. Chen had given the key to a maintenance worker who turned out to be untrustworthy. Maybe I'd lost my key somewhere and someone had found it. Maybe my dad had lost high key and someone else had picked it up. I was grasping for any scenario that didn't involve my own family betraying me. I called my dad, Marshall, to let him know about the break-in. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey Caleb, how was Yellowstone?" "Dad, someone broke into the house and stole my camera equipment," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause, a long pause. In that silence, I could hear Eileen's voice in the background asking, "Is that Caleb?" And my dad shushing her, What do you mean, stole? He finally asked. I mean, someone came into my bedroom while I was gone and took my Canon and all my lenses. Everything's gone. Another pause then. Oh, that. Well, we need to talk. The way he said that made my blood run cold. Not, oh no, or that's terrible, or we should call the police right now. Just, oh, that. Like it was an inconvenience he'd been hoping to avoid. What do you mean that? I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. Come over to the house, son. We'll explain everything. Explain what, Dad? Either someone stole my equipment or they didn't. Just come over, please. We'll talk about it when you get here. I drove to my dad's place in a daze, my mind racing through every possible explanation. Maybe they'd borrowed the equipment for some family event and forgotten to tell me. Maybe they'd moved it somewhere safe when they heard about break-ins in the neighbourhood. However, there was a simple misunderstanding that we could clear up in 5 minutes. Their house looked exactly the same as always, the same beige siding, the same overgrown juniper bushes, the same American flag hanging limp in the still Montana air. But something felt different. Maybe it was just my paranoia, but I noticed the curtains in the front window move slightly as I pulled into the driveway, like someone had been watching for me. Marshall and Eileen were waiting for me in their living room, sitting close together on their brown leather couch, like they were presenting a united front. The room smelled like Eileen's vanilla candles, and the coffee she always brewed. Too strong. Family photos covered the mantel above their gas fireplace, wedding pictures, vacation shots from their trip to Glacier National Park, school photos of Sadie from every grade. I noticed there weren't many pictures of me after high school. Sadie was nowhere to be seen, which was unusual. Normally, she'd be sprawled across the recliner with her phone, half listening to whatever conversation was happening around her. Sit down, Caleb, Eileen said, gesturing to the chair across from them. The same chair where I used to sit for family meetings when I was younger and had gotten in trouble for something. I remained standing. Where's my camera equipment? Marshall cleared his throat and glanced at Eliane before answering. We sold it. For a moment, I couldn't process what he just said. The words seemed to hang in the air like smoke. You what? We sold your camera to help pay for Said's acting intensive in Los Angeles, Eliane explained, as if this was the most reasonable thing in the world. She got accepted into this incredible program at the Lee Strasberg Theatre and Film Institute. It's a 6-week intensive course, and it includes housing in Hollywood and image consulting sessions with industry professionals. This is her big break. Caleb, I felt something shift inside my chest, like a foundation settling in an earthquake. You sold my camera equipment to pay for Said's acting camp. It's not camp, Marshall said defensively, his voice taking on that edge it always got when he felt criticised. It's a professional program. She's 17 and this is her window of opportunity. The admissions coordinator told us that most successful actors start intensive training before they turn 18. You're 23, you're an adult. You'll figure out how to replace your gear. She auditioned for this program 6 months ago, Eileen added, as if this detail somehow justified everything we've been planning and saving, but the final acceptance came with only 2 weeks' notice, and we were still short on the tuition money. When we saw your equipment just sitting there in your closet. Just sitting there, I interrupted. That equipment is how I make my living. You're young and resourceful, Eileen continued, waving her hand dismissively. You built your business once, you can build it again, but Sadie might never get another chance like this. The entertainment industry is all about timing and connections. This program has launched dozens of careers. I stared at them both, waiting for the punchline, waiting for them to tell me this was some kind of elaborate joke or test. But they just sat there looking at me with expressions that mixed guilt with defiance, as if they were simultaneously sorry for hurting me and convinced they'd made the right choice. How much did you sell it for? They exchanged another glance. Marshall shifted uncomfortably. $2,000, 0 cents. 2,000? I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. You sold $4,000, 0 cents worth of equipment for $2,000, 0 cents. The guy at the pawn shop said that was fair market value for used equipment. Eileen said quickly. He explained that cameras depreciate really fast, especially with all the new models coming out every year. I laughed. actually laughed out loud, not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was screaming or crying, and I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of either. They had taken my life's work, my business, my future, and sold it to a pawn shop for half its value to fund their daughter's Hollywood fantasy. I have contracts, I said, my voice eerily calm. Client commitments, corporate videos scheduled for this week, a wedding on Saturday that I've been planning for 3 months. You'll figure something out, Marshall said, and I could hear him trying to convince himself as much as me. You always do. That's just who you are, son. You're a survivor. You're creative. You'll find a way to make this work. Maybe you can rent equipment for the wedding, Aileen suggested brightly, as if she'd just solved world hunger. I saw a commercial for a place in Billings that rents out cameras and stuff. Rent equipment, I repeated flatly. With what money? And then what about next week's shoots? And the week after that? You want me to rent equipment indefinitely while I save up for 4 years to buy my own gear again? The room fell silent. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross Eileen's face. Maybe she was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about a camera, it was about destroying someone's entire livelihood. I need the $2,000 euro cents, I said, right now. Well, we can't do that, Eileen said quickly, the brightness returning to her voice like a defense mechanism. We already wired the money to the program in LA. Said's flight leaves tomorrow morning. She's probably packing right now. That's when it truly hit me. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had planned this. They knew exactly when I'd be gone. They knew I wouldn't find out until it was too late to stop them. They had used my Yellowstone trip as the perfect cover for their theft. This wasn't some impulsive decision made in desperation. This was premeditated. Which pawn shop? I asked. Why do that matter? Marshall said, his defensive tone returning. Because I want to know who has my stolen property. It wasn't stolen, Aileen snapped, her mask of pleasantness finally slipping. We're your parents. We have a right to make decisions about household property. I don't live here anymore. Aileen, I haven't lived here in 3 years. You broke into my house and stole my belongings. That's not parental authority, that's burglary. Marshall stood up from the couch, his face wreathing. Don't you dare talk to your stepmother that way. We raised you. We gave you everything. We're family. And family helps family. Family helps family, I repeated. Is that what you call destroying my business to pay for Said's vacation? It's not a vacation, Eileen shouted, also rising from the couch. It's her future, it's her dream. She's worked so hard for this opportunity. I looked at both of them standing there, united in their righteous indignation, and I finally understood something I'd been blind to for years. This wasn't about the money. This wasn't even about Sadie's acting program. This was about the family hierarchy they'd established long ago, where Sadie's wants would always matter more than my needs, where her dreams were investments and my livelihood was expendable. I left without another word. I had heard everything I needed to hear. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Not from anger, but from the sheer audacity of what they had done. Most people would have gone back and screamed, maybe thrown some punches, but I've always been methodical, and something told me that losing my temper would only make things worse. Instead of confronting them again, I went home and did what any smart business owner would do. I documented everything. I pulled out every receipt I had from purchasing that camera equipment, the original receipt from Camera Corral in Beauseisman showing the full $4.00, 27.89 purchase price, the warranty cards I'd filled out and filed, the insurance documentation I'd added to my business policy specifically for that equipment. Then I went through my client contracts. I had 3 corporate videos scheduled for that week alone, worth a combined $2,800, 0 cents. A wedding booked for the following Saturday, worth $1,200, 0 cents. 2 real estate listings for a local agent worth $600, 0 cents total. I printed out every contract, every email confirmation, every deposit receipt. By the time I was done, I had a paper trail showing exactly how much income I was going to lose because of their theft. Next, I called every pawn shop in Missoula, Bozeman and the surrounding areas. Hi, I'm looking for a Canon EOS R5 with professional lenses that might have come in recently, I'd say. On my sixth call, I hit jackpot. Rocky Mountain Pawn on North Reserve had bought a Canon EOS R5 with 3 lenses just 2 days earlier. Yeah, we got that set up, the guy told me. Nice gear. Some middle-aged couple brought it in, said it was their son's, but he was upgrading to something newer. How much did you pay them for it? $2,000. We've got it priced at $3,500 for resale. So there it was. My dad and Eileen had told the pawn shop owner a completely different story than they told me. They weren't just thieves. They were liars who had gotten my equipment for 50 cents on the dollar by misrepresenting the situation. I asked the pawn shop owner to hold the equipment and told him I'd be in touch. Then I started making the calls I should have made immediately. I contacted my existing clients to explain the situation and push back their project timelines. Most were understanding, but I could hear the concern in their voices. In the videography business, reliability is everything. One missed deadline can destroy relationships that took years to build. That evening, I had dinner with my buddy Jake, who happens to be a paralegal at one of Missoula's law firms. I laid out the whole situation for him over beers at the Missoula Club. Dude, that's straight up theft, Jake said, shaking his head. Doesn't matter if they're your parents. You're an adult. It's your property. They took it without permission and sold it. That's textbook larceny in Montana. What are my options? You could file criminal charges, property theft over $1,000, 0 cents is a felony in Montana, or you could go civil and sue them for the full replacement value plus lost income. Jake leaned back in his chair. But if you want my advice, send them a demand letter first. Give them one chance to make this right before you bring in the law. Can you help me write it? Absolutely. But Caleb, you need to understand, once you send that letter, there's no going back. Your relationship with your dad and stepmom is probably over. I thought about Marshall telling me I was a survivor who would figure something out. I thought about Eileen dismissing my business as something I could just replace. I thought about Sadie boarding a plane to Los Angeles with money stolen from my livelihood. The relationship was over the moment they decided Sadie's dreams were more important than my business, I told Jake. We spent the next 2 hours crafting the most professional, legally sound demand letter I'd ever seen. It laid out the facts clearly. They had unlawfully taken and sold property belonging to me, causing both immediate financial loss and ongoing damage to my business reputation. We demanded full restitution of $412,789.00 for the equipment plus $5,600.00 for the lost income from cancelled contracts to be paid within 14 days, or I would pursue both criminal charges and civil litigation. The letter was perfect, cold, factual, and terrifying for anyone who received it. I sent the demand letter via certified mail on a Thursday morning. By Friday afternoon, my phone was ringing non-stop. First Marshall, then Eileen, then Marshall again. I let every call go to voicemail. The voicemail started reasonable enough. Caleb, we need to talk about this letter. Call me back. But by evening, they were getting desperate. Son, you're being unreasonable. We're family. Family doesn't sue family. Family also doesn't steal from family. But apparently that distinction was lost on them. On Monday, Jake called me. Dude, your dad's lawyer contacted our firm. They want to know if we can work something out. What kind of something? They're offering to pay you the $2,000 0 cents they got from the pawn shop, plus maybe another $500 0 cents for your trouble. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. $2,500 a year cents for over $9,000 in equipment and lost income. That's what I told them. Their lawyer sounded pretty nervous. Honestly, I don't think Marshall and Eileen fully explained the situation to him. Here's the thing about small towns like Missoula. Everyone knows everyone, and gossip travels fast. Word was already getting around about the Dorian family drama. I knew this because my barber mentioned it during my haircut that week, and Mrs. Peterson from the grocery store asked if I was doing okay with all that family business. Marshall worked at First Interstate Bank downtown. Eileen taught third grade at Hawthorne Elementary. Their reputations in the community mattered to them. The